Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Omnichannel Marketer. This is your host, Kate Stevens. Today we have Dillon Ceglio, founder and CEO of Chubby Snacks. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Amazing. Yeah, we're excited. I'm great. I'm having a good day. So we were just chatting about how we both happen to be in a WeWork in like almost duplicate booths here, but actually on other sides of the country, it's just pretty funny. It's totally founder life, holing up in a booth like this.
Yep. Yep. This is like my
So
day-to-day so
anyway,
much.
seriously. So anyway, Dylan, would love to, start with a little bit more of your background and kind of the, founding story behind Chubby Snacks.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to usually kick it off, talk about like my childhood a little bit, just because I think it's very relevant to just why I chose to go after the Uncrustable, and just kind of like my overall thought process to nutrition and like healthy living. So I grew up in a blue collar neighborhood right outside New York City. My mom was a personal trainer and spin instructor as a kid, and my friends used to laugh all the time that I had the healthiest snacks and like probably the least exciting pantry on the block, which was so true. I mean, we didn't have a microwave until I think I was like 13 or 14 years old. But anyway, I digress. Growing up, it was interesting just because, as I mentioned, it was a blue collar community, and, I can walk to any street corner in my city and there's a bodega or there's a pizza parlor. And as a kid, I didn't really know what entrepreneurs were or what entrepreneurship really stood for. But, I appreciated and respected these, small business owners for what they were building. Fast forward till I get to high school, I was lucky enough to go to a prep school in downtown Jersey City. But it was there where I started meeting all these kids from the suburbs of New Jersey. And most of their parents were very successful, mostly working on Wall Street or in the finance world. And so very quickly, it became obvious that like the way to become successful is to kind of stay on this like straight and narrow path of graduate from prep, go to a good college, get a finance degree, work on Wall Street. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. Things didn't really turn out that way for me. I went through some things with just family and ultimately just didn't do that great in school. I actually have my SAT score tattooed on my wrist, which is kind of weird, but also significant, obviously. That's another story. So I ended up just going through like finding ways to get my way through like the back door. And so I went to junior college. I ended up doing pretty well there. And that opened up the opportunity to go to USC out in Los Angeles. And so I made the big trip. I'd never been west of the Mississippi. I got out to USC and I started meeting all these kids that were, bootstrapping themselves with these side projects of either selling beanies out of their backpack, t-shirts out of the back of their car, or some of the kids were actually making beats and selling them to artists in Hollywood, which was really cool. Anyway, that got me really thinking, like, I thought I had really good street smarts. I knew I wasn't very book smart driven, but I knew I could really figure things out. And like logistically was always thinking about like my next moves. And so I won't bore you with just like all the little side projects that I did, but one thing led to another and I found myself in digital marketing. And so I was a freelance digital marketer at first, and I took a bunch of like backpacking trips across the world, Southeast Asia and Europe, all of which I was again by myself. So you can imagine with those conversations, like, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? I'm Dillon Ceglio. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm a digital marketer, quote unquote. That led to me picking up clients, all in the e-commerce space. And so after all these trips, I felt very rejuvenated, but also really, excited about this next chapter of my life. And so slowly but surely, I started building out more of a boutique agency. I tapped on my now business partner, Brett, to help me build this. And so for the next like 4 years, this is what we've really focused on. But it was also during this time that I started noticing this crazy trend happening in food and beverage where brands were popping up that were recreating traditional products with elevated nutritionals and better for you ingredients lists. And that's when I went to the drawing board and started thinking of like all these snacks that I like to eat as a kid. And as a kid, I loved the Uncrustable. But because of my mom, I never had them in the house. So, there was just like this weird, like, I thought it was like, oh, maybe I could recreate the Uncrustable with healthy ingredients. And so, I started doing some research. Obviously, the Uncrustables or Smucker is a publicly traded company. So I was able to see their financials and kind of see how well they were doing with the Uncrustable. And, just to give you a little bit of insights, last year they did over $500 million in peanut butter and jelly sandwich sales. Like 90% of that came from peanut butter grape, peanut butter strawberry. And so I thought the proof is in the pudding. I would utilize my skills as a direct-to-consumer marketer, and then use that to open up these doors to get into natural grocery stores where it was impermissible for the Uncrustable to sell because of their ingredients. And that's ultimately what I did. I tapped on my brother at first to put together like a fruit forward jam recipe. I slapped it together with clean nut butter, clean bread, packaged it up, and I walked around Los Angeles to different soccer camps and baseball camps and handed them out to kids and their mom. And immediately people knew exactly what we were doing. They liked the product. And so I tapped on Brett and I was like, hey man, like, I think we're on to something here. Like, let's, stop doing marketing and create a peanut butter and jelly empire. So that was kind of how we got into everything. I could stop there if you have any questions, but obviously I could kind of tell you a little bit about more of like after the launch and then kind of where we're at today.
Love it. Love that, like the hustler, like just background, handing out PB&Js to parents. Yeah, tell me about where you are and where you came from. And there's so much on your backstory that I have more questions about, but we can.
Well, I want to keep this pretty high level too, but I don't know. I just honestly like my upbringing, just kind of like my journey pre-Chubby, I think just kind of set the foundation for just like how we kind of move about now, which I'm obviously super grateful for. But yeah, so ended up launching the business within like 30 days, direct to consumer business. We got hit with a cease and desist from Smuckers, which I've made pretty obvious and clear at this point. We throttled the business for about 7 months, then relaunched with the Cloud Shape, as well as rebranded ourselves too. All direct to consumer still. And that's really when like things really started hitting a stride. We just saw a lot of like people very interested in what we were doing. And so that first year we were all
actually, yeah, no, I'm so curious in that cease and desist because I think that like, obviously this is a healthier version of that product. You've been very, very clear. How did you think about that as a business? And like, did you get an attorney? It sounded like you slowed down for a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't have much money at all. I was super naive getting into this. I figured we were going to jump into a deep part of the pool and just tread water until we had to, we figured it out essentially. And so that was kind of like how things started. And so I launched with the circle shaped sandwich. Unbeknownst to me and my team, we didn't know that Uncrustables Smucker had a patent or a trademark on a circle shaped sandwich. They do. I found that out obviously the hard way. So at first it was like, put all my money into this. I'm like, they're pretty much telling me I'm a criminal. They have to shut my doors and everything that I'm doing down. And so after the dust settled, like I quickly realized that this was a good thing. And after hiring a IP attorney, they told us like either you could fight them in court for this or you could just change your shape. And so we took that as obviously as an opportunity to change our shape. I didn't have the funds to be able to compete against them in court. And so, yeah, for the next 7 months, I essentially had to like sell like under the radar, just to get rid of like the packaging materials that we had and continue to like showcase that, we have opportunity. And it took about 7 months before we could like really reshape ourselves and then relaunch ourselves.
And mind physically reshape the
yeah, we're a cloud now. And we kind of took a page out of their book. We have a trademark on the cloud shaped sandwich now too. So pretty excited about that.
Cool. Okay. Thank you I think that's a super interesting part of your background. Okay. So you're saying first year after that, you've transitioned to shape now. Then what?
Yep. So like February 2021, we relaunched the cloud shaped sandwich. All the rest of the year was really just focused on driving like brand and like getting trial out there through direct to consumer, because we knew that if we built a good enough brand online, we'd be able to leverage that to open up opportunities to get into retail. And so at the end of 21, Whole Foods came knocking on our door, asked us to launch with them. We launched with them into 35 doors, organically grew into the rest of the SoPac region. And so 2022, the start of that, our goal was really just to start, kind of flipped our whole business model upside down and just said, we're going after retail. And so it was tough because, we were selling sandwiches online for $4 per sandwich plus shipping. And then we had to switch over into retail where we were selling to UNFI or KeHE for $1.50 per sandwich. So we chopped our revenue in half pretty much. But again, it was strategic. We know that the success of this business and the future of this business lies in retail, more so than direct to consumer. Don't get me wrong. There's obviously that component to it as well, but we're expecting to do like 80 to 90% of our volume in retail opposed to any other channel.
And you think that's just the nature of the CPG industry, that's where you need to be for your customers? Like, how do you think about that makeup, especially coming from the background as a digital marketer that, knows that digital ecosystem so well?
Totally. Yeah, honestly, like we're a frozen product. It's expensive to ship. boxes to people's doorsteps. And then there's also a lot of variabilities that come to play too. I think we do a good job at packaging things correctly, but if you leave your package out on your porch during the summer for, 2 hours too long, our product's going to spoil. And then what happens, right? Then I'm, dealing with the returns or an angry customer potentially. So with that being said, and then also just kind of looking at the business model that Smucker's created, they clearly going after, retail for a reason. It's because that's where they're succeeding at. So we're just, I'm trying to recreate the wheel in terms of what we're providing in terms of nutrition, but not recreating the wheel in terms of the overall business model. But having said that, there are opportunities for us to be able to be direct to consumer. And we have a strong, or at least we've had a strong subscription customer base, direct to consumer. We've since had to turn off direct to consumer just to fulfill our relationships at retail. But we've had a strong D2C business, which makes us think that obviously we can continue down that path, obviously. And then obviously with Amazon of the world, as well as different e-tailers, there's a lot of opportunity for us to continue to spread ourselves across different channels, specifically through direct to consumer.
Cool. So what you said, really rang a bell with me around not recreating the wheel with a business model that works. So I'd love to hear your perspective. It's something that we talk a lot about internally at our company. It's let's use playbooks that work. So I'd love to hear, maybe that's kind of the retail first. I'd love to hear where you think you're listen, this is what we could just take from Smucker's versus this is how we're different and, how we're going to get a different share of the pie, or how you think about that.
Totally. Yeah. Well, what I'll say is there's absolutely no playbook, and I'm sure you can attest to that as well. This is a master's degree on steroids, and you can never tell me otherwise. Every day you wake up and you go into the office or whatever, you start your work day and you're expecting to put out fires and see something that you didn't see the day before, which is, it's scary, but it's also incredibly motivating and exciting too. But I'll digress. To answer your question, so I think for us, in terms of recreating the wheel or lack thereof, obviously the nutrition play comes into it. And I think for us, we've studied a lot of what the Uncrustables has done, and they really take a lot of focus into the individual ingredients within their product, bread being the most difficult to work with. And so, I think for us, we thought there was a differentiation opportunity with our jam and making that proprietary to what we wanted. Nut butters are pretty standard across the board. So, we focus on just utilizing clean nut butters. And there's a lot of sources out there for us to be able to utilize. And then bread, we want to make sure that we have fresh bread delivered every single day. So anytime we move into a new manufacturer, our focus is figuring out where that closest bread source is going to be, and then creating a partnership with them. So, and that kind of packaged up into a final product creates this, better for you alternative, without really jeopardizing, I guess, the model that we're trying to create in terms of retail to direct consumer.
So something that I haven't gone into in this podcast yet is kind of how that distributor model works, and kind of you referenced you're selling at $1.50 to UNFI. Can you kind of talk through a little bit more of that process and what that relationship? Tell our listeners who that is.
Yeah, it's kind of tough, right? Because it's one of those chicken or the egg kind of scenarios, because you need to get set up into distributors like UNFI and KeHE in order to be able to then sell your product to a Whole Foods or a Sprouts of the world. But you also need to win the business of Sprouts or a Whole Foods in order to be able to get the distribution, right? So every distribution center within KeHE and UNFI all have, you have to be able to anchor those distribution centers in order to be able to open it up. So say a, mom and pop 5-store grocery store really wants to carry your product in Southern California, but that mom and pop shop most likely won't be able to anchor that distribution center in for Southern California, it's either Chino or Moreno Valley. So what you then have to do is figure out how to get that distribution center open. And a lot of times it's going to be these bigger box retailers. And for us, it was Whole Foods. And so it is very difficult, but there are a lot of opportunities to be able to open up these DCs. And, we've kind of gone through the process of it, obviously. And a lot of that's through trade shows, being able to exhibit there and sample your products to buyers that are walking through. Obviously, figuring out how to get your foot in the door in terms of either LinkedIn messaging or cold emailing, or even getting a warm intro to a buyer. they're always going to be sourcing and testing new products. It just so happens to just matter whether or not you're hit messaging them at the right time and they happen to relate or like your product in some type of way. I think like the difficult part with distribution and retailers is these buyers are, essentially the gatekeepers, and oftentimes, and not always, but oftentimes they make decisions based off of their taste buds opposed to data. And so you kind of have to figure out ways to like maneuver through these types of scenarios, because one buyer might be like, oh my God, I absolutely love you. But the next buyer will say, I don't know, your jam's too sweet, or I didn't really like the bread. And it's like, how can one buyer tell you yes because of the data in that one region, but the next buyer tell you no because their taste buds don't align with your product? So those are like difficulties at managing it. But obviously it's like, if you know where your success is going to be in retail, you got to figure out any which way to be able to like break down those barriers and figure out a way to get your foot in the door.
So you kind of talked about trade shows, you talked about like cold outreach. What are some of the, what's been an effective strategy for you specifically to get in front of these buyers? And, what are you focused on right now?
Yeah. Trade shows by far are the best things for us. I think we do a really good job at presenting ourselves at trade shows. I'd like to think our brand and our product do a really good job at doing the talking for us. But if you then come to our booth and you get to meet myself, John, and Brett, and we're just over there slinging PB&Js and having a good time, and we get some small chit chat, I think we really get to showcase our personalities behind the brand, which I think then kind of relates to a lot of the buyers. And you kind of just create this rapport with them, especially if you're going to trade show after trade show, you're seeing them one after the other. And so you don't always expect to get a win in the short game, but you always got to kind of play and prepare for the long game. And so the more you can stay consistent in front of them, the higher your likelihood is that you're going to be able to get into those stores.
So what are some of the big trade shows that are most important for your brand?
Yeah, so this year specifically, we're focused on Expo West, Expo East, and then outside of those being like the bigger trade shows, we're really focused on our distributor shows. So KeHE has 2 or 3 shows every year. UNFI has 2 or 3 shows every year, and they're usually focused in a specific region. So if we know that we just opened up that DC and there's a lot of business to win there, we'll specifically go to that trade show to be able to meet buyers that are going to be, working that region.
Great. So like transitioning to a little bit more, clearly retail is the biggest growth lever for you in the future. I think something that I, heard a lot at Expo West were, okay, now we've landed these retail accounts. How do we make sure that we're successful at retail? What are some of the ways that you as a brand have supported your retail accounts and strategies that you've helped drive that retail velocity and at your retail?
Totally. Yeah. They say the easiest part of the process is getting yourself on the shelf. The hardest part is selling, right? And so it's not easy, obviously, especially as a frozen brand. Like we can't have like an end cap or display at any grocery store. So it's how can you really get somebody who's walking into a grocery store where there's thousands upon thousands of brands in there and get them to see your product and be like, wow, I'm going to try that for the first time. It's not easy, especially in the frozen section. You go into some of the frozen aisles and the glass is fogged up and your product's sitting behind it. There's nothing you can really do about that. But being that I'm a digital marketer, now they think there's enough tools out there to be able to really start bridging the gap between digital and retail. And so we're really leaning into like geo-targeting our campaigns and making sure that we're reaching out to consumers that we know that live in a specific area around our grocery stores that we're in, and really trying to utilize, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok to be able to drive trial. And then assuming that we can collect their data, we utilize, SMS and email to be able to keep up with retention. And there's incentivized programs that we put in there and, fun games that we do as well in order to be able to win merch. But a lot of it really is just, needs to be work off this. A lot of it really is just, just trying to figure out how you can, make it as easy and convenient as possible for somebody to go into the grocery store and try you. And that's from the digital way. Obviously, from like a grocery store relationship perspective, we're really leaning into demos at new grocery stores that we launch into. Merchandising obviously is a big one as well, making sure that we're building relationships with the store level employees, making sure that we're giving out free product every time we go through, merch every now and then too. And really just like showing that we're consistently showing up because we want to, establish good terms with that relationship. And obviously that doesn't really sound scalable. And for the most part, it's not, but you can kind of pick and choose those battles where you see opportunity, especially those high turning stores as well. You obviously want to play that 80-20 rule game, where you're putting a lot of your effort into where you're seeing the most success.
Makes complete sense. Yeah, love music to my ears, hearing kind of all of those different methods. Obviously omni-channel marketer, we're really focused here on like, what are these creative ways that brands are bridging, the offline and the online and the digital and the physical. So I think your background, you get it, which is amazing. I wanted to shift to, this topical focus around something that you feel bold or passionate about, and, would love to hear why that's important to you.
In regards to the company or just in general?
In regards to life.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty passionate about PB&Gs. Obviously it's self-explanatory, but no, I mean, honestly, like it's really difficult. It's not easy doing this. And I think in order to be able to like continue to build the company and continue to fight through just the headwinds, like you have to be passionate about it. Like we have gone through very tumultuous times, and still to be able to wake up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning and get out of bed and run to the office at 6:30, 7 a.m., which I'm doing typically every day. It's difficult. And I think like the fact that we're having so much fun building this and we're constantly learning every day, that really drives a lot of the passion, and it drives through a lot of the, the turmoil that we deal with here and there. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm passionate about other things. And I think like fitness and like, fitness is probably one of my bigger passions. And I think a lot of it also just kind of weaves through one another and really creates this collective passion for just, I guess, kind of always having an edge, if you will. I think I utilize fitness is more so from a mental perspective to make sure that I'm constantly in the right headspace. I get a lot out of being able to like work out and, eat clean and do different types of like outdoor activities with friends. That really does kind of like balance out my entire life. But again, it also reinforces just like my attitude and my perseverance to what we're doing with Chubby Snacks.
Yep. And I can attest, Dillon, you and I actually met at an event, Naturally New York, which is an industry event for everyone's benefit. And you were in a cast because you'd recently, been in a snowboarding accident. So I think that like that speaks to the hustle. Here you are, like, and the passion. You're, at an event, a cocktail event in a cast. Like there's nothing pleasant about that, like days after surgery. So then, that speaks to the hustle and the passion that you're speaking to. So I can attest, it's not just, you're not just talking about it. So
I appreciate that.
And then important for me to know, does your mom approve of the ingredient list in Chubby Snacks?
Yeah, my mom is a huge fan.
Okay.
Again, I really appreciate what she instilled in me at an early age. We didn't have soda in the house. We didn't have unhealthy food for the most part. And she just like kind of set the tone at a very early age that you need to treat your body like, like you need to really focus on like what you put in your body in order to be able to get the best output. And so I just kind of live that lifestyle in a sense where, I want what I'm creating in my product to be a reflection of what I put into my body. And I think we did a really good job thus far with our nutritional panel and our ingredients list.
Awesome. Okay. So shifting into our lightning round. So just like quick questions, quick answers.
Cool.
Favorite omni-channel brand?
Ooh, Olipop is definitely up there for me right now.
Yeah, they're an awesome brand. Thing you wish you could change about our industry?
Oh man, that's like a whole nother podcast. You kidding? Founder empathy.
And what do you mean by that?
I think it's difficult for people that aren't operators to understand what it's like on a day-to-day basis for us to be able to kind of get up and do what we do every day.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just a disconnect in terms of like the understanding of being an operator and someone who's not.
Totally. Favorite podcast?
Yours, of course.
No. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Favorite newsletter?
Morning Brew.
Yes.
I'm an
Favorite
everyday
social
reader.
media? Favorite social media channel?
I've actually gone pretty heavy into Substack right now. I've been doing a lot of reading of articles, and I always do a lot of reading of articles. I don't really get enough time to read books, but there's really good information and just really good reading on that platform.
Cool. And you find also for the business super valuable?
Yeah, there's definitely people that there's definitely readers or writers on there that are more specific to the industry, but there's just also a lot of really interesting, thought-provoking material.
Favorite book?
I just finished Shoe Dog. Also after I saw the movie Air, so I definitely am leaning towards that.
Cool. And then event that you're most excited about this year?
Oh, Expo East. I get to wear my big fluffy purple jacket.
Oh, I'll have to see that. You might see our giant QR code, man. So, Dillon, thank you so much. Where can our listeners connect with you?
I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can just search my name. I'll pop up pretty easily, I'd imagine. And then obviously follow Chubby Snacks on all platforms. We're typically one word. Sometimes you'll see us with an underscore in between.
Awesome. Well, I will be following, and Dillon, really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
If you liked this podcast, follow me and the Bridge page on LinkedIn and Twitter for hot takes and tactical advice. If you really loved today's episode, we'd love a review on the podcasting platform of your choice, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening.